Have you ever felt like success is being withheld from you? Like you're doing everything right, you're showing up, you're putting in the work, and the reward just keeps moving out of reach? I want you to listen to what I'm about to say. Today I'm going to talk about Saturn. Hey everyone, welcome back. If you're new here, I'm Yolanda. I'm a certified astrologer and life coach, and I work at the intersection of astrology, psychology, and embodied self-trust. And today we're going deep on the one planet that most people are afraid of, but that when you understand it, changes everything. And this planet is, of course, Saturn. So let's start with the mythology. Who is Saturn? So before Saturn was a planet in your chart, Saturn was a god. And honestly, the myth, the story of Saturn matters more than most people think. In Roman mythology, Saturn, who the Greeks called Cronus, was the titan of time. The titans were these powerful beings before the Olympian gods. He ruled what they called the Golden Age. It was a time of abundance and ease and harmony. There was no war, there was no suffering. Sounds beautiful, right? But here's the thing, Saturn was secretly terrified. There was this prophecy that one of his own children would overthrow him. And so he did what fear makes powerful people do, and what many of us actually do. He tried to control the future. And so he did this by swallowing his children whole. As his wife Rhea gave birth, he swallowed them whole, right? The babies. Now, before you think, okay, well, what's ancient mythology got to do with me? I want you to sit with that image for a moment. Saturn swallowing his children. Time itself consuming the very things it created. The future eaten by fear of the future. Potential devoured before it could grow. Sound familiar? How many times have you had an idea, a real one? You know, those ideas that excite you. And before you even give this idea a chance to come to life, to breathe, something swallows it all, like something just takes it away. And what is the something? Well, it could be a number of things, but usually it's fear of failure. It's this voice that says, you're not ready. It's this idea that the timeline isn't moving in your favor or isn't moving fast enough. And now this is all Saturn. It's not evil or relentless because Saturn is the key to transformation. So the mythological point here is this. The Saturnian or Saturnine force of time, of limitation, of structure. It's not a wall, it's a gate. But you only get through the gate by meeting Saturn on his own terms. So in astrology, Saturn is known as the Great Malefic, which you know sounds terrifying. And for ancient astrologers, it definitely was. Saturn ruled loss and death and hardship. But modern astrologers tend to ask deeper questions about the planets. We are wanting to know what is the function of all these things? What is the function of hardship and loss and delay? And the answer is discipline and structure and reality testing. It's this slow, unglamorous accumulation of real mastery. Saturn rules Capricorn and Aquarius. Now, Capricorn is the mountain goat. And just if you've ever watched a mountain goat climb up a mountain, you'll know that the mountain goat doesn't leap to the top. It doesn't happen in one foul sweep or one great leap, from the bottom to the top. It's it takes like solid footing. You first, the mountain goat establishes itself, solid footing, and then takes one step at a time. And it never loses the ground that it's already gained. And so Saturn rules time. That's why you see in the glyph, you see this crossed sickle. It's the scythe of Father Time, the thing that cuts away what isn't real. So Saturn rules the time that you need to develop, to mature, to grow, to apply discipline. So wherever Saturn sits in your birth chart, this is where you are going to work the hardest. This is where you're going to find that you feel the most inadequate, usually early in life, because that's where you're going to face the most repeated tests. So I'm going to go through each sign, and I'm also going to speak very quickly about the Saturn return. So let's look at the Saturn return. The first Saturn return occurs around the ages of 28 to 31, and again the second one is around the ages of 58 to 60. Saturn returns to the exact position that he was at when you were born. That is what the Saturn return is. And this is quite literally when the bill comes due. Everything that you've been avoiding, the character work, the commitment, the growing up, the maturing, the process of maturing, Saturn presents this, and it brings this up not as some sort of punishment, but as a test, as an exam. And the people who collapse through their Saturn return, who scatter or who numb themselves, often spend the next decade rebuilding from scratch. But the people who meet their Saturn return, who are prepared to put in the work, who choose depth over distraction, they come out of it with something most people never have, which is a self that is built and not borrowed. And this is really so, so important. Let me share something personal here for a moment. I grew up without reliable models, and if you're curious about my Saturn placement, my Saturn is in my fourth house in Taurus. And when you have Saturn in the fourth house, you are usually exposed to some sort of deprivation in the home. Either your parents were neglectful or absent. Maybe you were raised by a grandparent like I was. I was raised primarily by my paternal grandmother. And I also was exposed to poverty or, sense of deprivation. We didn't have much growing up. It also sometimes represents, emotional reserves, or like people who withhold emotional care from you. Anyway, my primary caregiver, although she was a very wise, very witchy woman, I learned a lot from her, was actually also very verbally abusive and emotionally reserved. So I didn't grow up with much in the way of positive reinforcement. There was no one holding up a mirror to me saying, this is what you're good at, and this is what you're capable of if you just, put in more work, dedicate yourself to something. There was just no positive mirroring. So I did a lot of what other people do. I tried to do it, and books saved my life. I tried to learn from other people on how to be and how to move through this world. And, at certain times in my life, especially in my late teens and early 20s, I kind of tried to hitch my star to someone else's wagon kind of thing. Like I thought the shortcut around the most important work any of us will ever do is to try and find someone else who seems to have it all together and try and be more like them. And I'm sharing this story because This is why Saturn is so relevant. Saturn is the planet of self-authorship, of building yourself through time, through discipline, through repeated return to what genuinely interests you and also challenges you, and not what someone else says should interest you. And, just nowadays we are being exploited, right? I'm just thinking in terms of marketing. I think the modern world has created a crisis here when it comes to achieving a stable, self-authored identity. Because marketers are trained to offer us pre-packaged identities. Just think about the influencers that you follow. They persuade you to buy into their lifestyle, buy this and become that person, follow this and belong to this tribe kind of thing, right? The algorithm actually curates a self for you, which is why you have to be so careful about who you are paying attention to, who you are choosing to follow. Because marketing, as at its core, is a Saturn bypass. It promises you the outcome, the identity, the status, the belonging, without the slow and glamorous work of actually building it. And the terrifying thing is that it does work, but it's temporary because the hunger that we all have for identity is real. The void left, for example, by absent parents or by a culture that doesn't initiate its young. So many of us now are like, we've abandoned all these initiation rites. We don't belong to cultures anymore where initiation rites are present. So there's this very real void, and a brand wants to fill this, of course, for a price. So, what Saturn knows, what time always reveals, is that a borrowed self cannot hold. Eventually, the facade cracks and the brand changes, and the influencer fails and disappears, and the tribe dissolves, and you're left with the same question that you were avoiding. Who are you really? And what have you actually, built? Okay. So, let's look at Saturn in the signs. If you have Saturn in Aries, you are in your Saturn return at this time, and your identity is being completely restructured. Saturn in Aries is earned courage. And by this, I mean that you experience hardship when you fail to act courageously. You have to show up fearlessly in your life. You have to be brave enough to take chances, and you have to fearlessly share more of yourself. Saturn in Taurus, your relationship with money and with your own value is being tested. This is not about deprivation, it's about the building of a real sense of worth that doesn't depend on external validation. The financial discipline you build becomes your superpower. Saturn in Gemini, how you speak, how you write, how you show up in your immediate environment, all of this needs to be refined. You have to practice discipline. You have to take your time. You have to savor slow learning. Saturn here asks you to mean what you say and to say what you mean. Saturn in Cancer, this is deep structural work on where you come from and what home actually means to you. Old family patterns may surface for healing, and you can't rush this, but you can meet it. Saturn in Leo, you're being asked constantly, like, what brings you joy? Not performative joy, not what looks good on social media, but what actually lights you up on the inside. Saturn in Leo strips away performance and asks you to create from something real. Saturn in Virgo, the mundane is where the mastery is right now. Your health habits, your daily discipline, the small things that you do every day. Saturn wants you to be real about that. It wants you to fix the foundation. Saturn in Libra wants to test your commitments, Your relationships, are they built on reality or fantasy? This isn't a punishment, it's an invitation to choose love that's built to last. Saturn in Scorpio tests your relationship to power and vulnerability, because Saturn here says, who do you trust with your depths? Who can you be the most intimate with? But perhaps more importantly, Saturn here wants you to build self-trust. And how do you build self-trust? You do it by proving to yourself that you can do hard things. Saturn in Sagittarius, you're being asked to get real about what you believe, not what you inherited from your family or from your culture, but what you actually believe. And the way you find this out is through travel, through studying, through finding teachers that challenge your worldview. Saturn in Capricorn, Saturn here is at home. And so you have all the patience and the consistency needed to succeed. You don't take shortcuts. You build on bedrock. Saturn in Aquarius, again, Saturn is at home in Aquarius. You're being asked to get serious about who you surround yourself with, which friendships actually support the person you're becoming. Saturn clears out the social noise so that the right community can find you. You have to be willing to let go of the wrong people first. Saturn in Pisces wants you to confront the fears that you didn't even know you had. So the key here isn't to avoid the solitude, because Saturn in the 12th rewards time spent alone in reflection, in doing the inner work. That's where your real foundation is being built. Okay, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this, if you learned something, if something resonated for you, please do leave a comment and do remember to like and subscribe. Thank you.